Previously, on Daryl the Gaffer's rebuild of Arsenal, the eternal runners-up, the last league title, basking in the dust of decades gone by.
I need you to be the visionary who can restructure this empire from within. I need you to build a machine that pays for itself and wins everything.
I am giving Mikel something more dangerous. Trust. Prove to me that these players are champions. You bring me the Premier League or the Champions League and the FA Cup. The dink is divine. Relief. A First League Cup since 1993. The curse was broken. In the league, we were imperious. 8 points clear at the turn of the year. A winter of discontent descended. The lead was a fragile 2 points. In the crucible of the title race and the pressure cooker of the Champions League, the management fractured. They were limitations. It was ruthless. It was controversial, but it was necessary. The era of nearly is over. The search was short. 2 names. Luis Enrique. But Cesc Fàbregas is ready to bleed for it. A dagger in the 85th minute. Another loss. 1 point from 9. We kept the engine humming with a morale-boosting 3-1 thumping of Manchester City. We shook off the draw and dismantled Chelsea. We clawed point after point, bringing the deficit down to a solitary integer ahead of a feisty clash at the Theatre of Dreams. Old Trafford. Rice put us ahead early, but the hosts would not go gently into the night. They levelled twice, dragging us into a brawl. Then, disaster. A red card midway through the second half reduced us to 10. Down a man, but up in spirit. Moments of pure magic from Eberechi, followed by the inevitable Bukayo, sealed a famous win up north. Adversity stared us in the face, and we stared right back. Unto the biggest moment of the season, a clash against Liverpool. Win, and we go top. Lose, and the gap becomes a chasm. An absolute stunning strike from Martin Ødegaard in the opening 10 minutes calmed the nerves. Then, at the stroke of half-time, a well-struck penalty from the Starboy doubled our advantage. But in the second half, Saka took matters into his own hands with a moment of Ronaldinho-esque brilliance. Magical trickery to deceive Gyökeres, hips swaying, feet dancing before cutting inside and whipping it top bins. Gorgeous. And as if the joy was incomplete, Martin Zubimendi unleashed a beauty of a volley, 4-0. Our best performance of the season. We were now in the driving seat, destiny firmly in our own grip. We put Ipswich to the sword, setting the stage for the finale. What was to come was unimaginable, even by the greatest of scriptwriters. The Emirates, game week 38, the title to play for, Tottenham Hotspur as the opponents. It simply does not get better than this. An opportunity for monumental revenge. A point would seal it, but revenge is best served cold. The Lily Whites put up a lofty showing, desperate to rain on our parade, a tense first half. Mainoo agonizingly close. As the clock ticked, a sense of fright crept around the stadium. What if Spurs nicked one? What if the ghost returned? Cesc rolled the dice. Gyökeres off. Mateta on. 85 minutes. Nothing separated our red from the enemy's white. But oh, for the joy that had evaded us. Sublimely delivered unto us by a certain bagsman from Sévran, Seine-Saint-Denis. Jean-Philippe Mateta. Très bien, monsieur. Parfait. Premium tears from the enemy at the very end. What seemed unrealistic 5 games in was now a resounding reality. 23 years of pain, heartbreak, hope, belief, and disbelief. It all ended today. Premier League champions, once again. Cesc had done it. But the hunger was not satisfied. With convincing wins over Bolton, Portsmouth, and Norwich, we locked horns with Manchester City in the semi-final. A cagey affair, broken by the sublime finish of Eberechi. Resilient, relentless. The final. A dress rehearsal for the league title fight against the Merseysiders. Cesc's boys were locked in. We won a penalty inside 5 minutes, but a well-struck effort from Saka was firmly saved by an outstanding Alisson. But heads did not drop. A glorious curler by Ødegaard. A poacher's finish from Gyökeres. We made them breathe our dust. And when opportunity struck twice, Saka wasted no time in sending Alisson the wrong way. The winning culture was growing. like cedars in Lebanon. Back-to-back FA Cup triumphs, determination and grit when it mattered most. The double was ours. The highlight of our continental voyage took us to the Montjuic, a pilgrimage, a return to the source for Cesc Fàbregas, pitted against the master, Pep Guardiola, back for his encore with the Catalan giants. It was a chess match played on grass until Ødegaard released Bukayo. The Starboy drove into the sanctuary of the 18-yard box and laid it on a plate for Gyökeres. 1-0. Efficiency. Compact in defense, brisk in attack. Timber surged, clipped it in, and met the bullet header of Martin Ødegaard. 2-0 to the Arsenal. We marched out of Catalonia with the points and a ticket to the round of 16. After a quiet affair in London, the old lady stood guard in Turin. But we didn't just knock on the door, we kicked it down. Within 5 minutes, a symphony of movement. Ødegaard to Lewis Skelly, a cushioned header, and the feet of our Swedish bagsman found the net. When Rugani handled in the area, Saka wasted no time, doubling the advantage. The Turin outfit were all over the gaff, dizzy from the movement. And when Bremer followed the clumsy steps of Rugani, our Brazilian rock, Gabriel, stepped up with supreme arrogance and laced it home. Out of sight! Yildiz offered a glimmer of hope finding coop miners, but it was a mere footnote. 4-1. We cruised past the Italian aristocracy. The Nerazzurri had staged a late comeback in London, taking a slender lead back to the San Siro. It was all or nothing in Milan, and on 20 minutes, it looked like nothing. Lautaro Martinez put the hosts firmly in the driving seat. We needed a lifeline. We got one. Martinelli's cross, Gyökeres' first-time shot. We were breathing again. Then, madness. Pavard decided to play goalkeeper, a penalty, but Gyökeres, usually ice-cold, found only the post. Just before the break, Eberechi Eze put us in front on the night, and early in the second half, the silencer. We held the line. A mazy run, a superb finish by Saka. We knocked out a second successive Italian giant. The reward? Our eliminators from last season, Los Blancos, at the Emirates, evenly matched until the blitz. 2 goals in 10 minutes blew us out of the water. But a second from the Swede kept a pulse beating. Hope remained ahead of the daunting trip to the Bernabéu. Madrid, the temple. Gyökeres was the man, once again, levelling the tie. But Vinicius Jr. spiced things up with a brilliant finish, putting us on the back foot. And then, the heartbreak. An unfortunate fumble by David Raya. Bellingham pounced. A crucial goal gifted to the gods. With time expiring, Mateta's 90th minute header found the bottom corner, but the sand had run out of the hourglass. Our European journey ended at the feet of the Grandmasters. They well and truly had our number. Agony in Europe, yes, but perspective is required. This was a solid first season by Cesc Fàbregas. A league and cup double. Narrow semi-final defeats in the Carabao and the Champions League. It was a foundation not just of concrete, but of gold. It was the season Victor Gyökeres stepped up remarkably to become a world beater, supported by the genius of Saka, the clutch moments of Mateta and Martin Ødegaard. The chief orchestrator he was always destined to be. A Manager of the Month award for the Spanish tactician was a timely reminder. The ghost is exorcised. The double is secured. If the football was poetry, the finances were pure power. While Cesc conquered the pitch, we conquered the ledger. This season wasn't just profitable, it was a financial revolution. Look at the numbers, they are obscene. We generated nearly £1 billion in revenue. Between the deadwood clearance, bringing in 137 million, and the sheer commercial violence of the Vanguard and Cortex deals, we turned Arsenal into a cash printing machine. And the spending? Disciplined. Just 50 million on new faces. The result is a net profit of 529 million. We aren't just rich, we are financially sovereign. But profit is vanity, debt is reality. At the start of this campaign, the KSE debt sat at 244 million. The transfer obligations were suffocating us at 220. The chains were still wrapped around our ankles, so we took a blowtorch to them. 94 million wired to Kroenke. 70 million sent to clear old transfer debts. 164 million pounds of liability. Evaporated. We have dragged the total obligation down to 300 million flat. The club valuation has rocketed to 3.32 billion. We are lighter, faster, and infinitely more powerful. Success is not accidental, it is engineered. The Premier League title is back in North London. 23 years of hurt, erased. But that glory was funded by ruthlessness. The deadwood clearance was clinical, turning depreciating assets into the war chest that bought our financial sovereignty. We own our future because we weren't afraid to sell our past. That power was amplified by the commercial expansion. Vanguard and Cortex didn't just write a check, they upgraded our logistics and intelligence, fueling the revolution from the ground up. And behind the scenes, the tactical cabinet turned this squad into a chameleon, while the DNA audit proved the pipeline is alive. A masterclass in executive management. The Cesc Fàbregas contract. I told him, win big or go home. It was a gamble that could have destroyed the season. But Cesc didn't just survive the pressure, he weaponized it. He took a team of nearly men and turned them into kings. The clause is triggered, the extension is live. The ink wasn't even dry on the manager's contract when the first shark began to circle. In football, the most dangerous moment isn't when you lose, it's the moment you win. Victor wants a meeting. He thinks he holds the cards. He has no idea that I've already seen the deck. The parade was over. The confetti had been swept away, and as predicted, the scent of success brought the sharks to the surface. Hassan Setinkaya didn't come to congratulate me. He came to hold the club to ransom. The demands were an insult to the hierarchy we've built. £500,000 a week. The captaincy. He wanted to strip the armband from Ødegaard and the soul from our wage structure. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I looked him in the eye and vehemently refused both. Improved terms are on the table, Hassan, but we do not negotiate with terrorists. We'll talk in 3 weeks. Hassan thought he held the cards. He thought the Viking was irreplaceable. He was wrong. My contacts in the Spanish press had whispered a secret Real Madrid was desperate to bury: Kylian Mbappé. A catastrophic injury in the Champions League final, 8 months out. Los Blancos was a king without a sword, and they were panicking. I knew the exact moment they would come knocking, and I knew exactly how much it would cost them. To win a war, you must first deceive the world. I issued a global presser. I told the media that our title defense required an elite strike partner to play alongside Victor Gyökeres. The world believed we were building a super team. Real Madrid grew more desperate, fearing they'd miss their chance. The trap was set. The mission for the dynasty is defined. 6 pillars of excellence. The Holy Grail. We have conquered England. Now we must conquer the continent. The Champions League trophy must come home to the N5. Dominance is not a moment. It is a habit. We will strive to retain our crown and prove that the revolution is a dynasty. Stagnation is death. We will continue to upgrade every position, ensuring our ceiling remains out of reach for the rest of Europe. We will execute the Great Squeeze, liquidating Victor Gyökeres for a club record fee that defies logic. We won't just win, we will destroy. We aim to break the Premier League's all-time goal-scoring record in a single season. And finally, we will remain open-minded and disciplined with our capital, aiming to pay out more of the KSE debt and outstanding transfer fees as we navigate toward total sovereignty. While Madrid was counting their pennies, I made my move, in total secrecy. I didn't want another brute. I wanted a spider, someone with the tactical intelligence to thrive in Cesca's system. Julian Álvarez. I sat down with Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone values the tactical discipline of a veteran like Mikel Marino above all else. I offered him the Spaniard plus £72 million. A deal they couldn't refuse. Marino moves to Madrid. The Spider moves to London. The replacement was secured before the world even knew there was a vacancy. The heist of the century was nearly complete. Finally, the call I was waiting for. Florentino was on the line. He was polite, but I could hear the sweat in his voice. He offered 100 million. I laughed and hung up. He called again, and I told him, "You have no Mbappé, you have no striker, and I have the best number 9 in the world. The price is a club record, or the Viking stays." I squeezed until there was nothing left to give. He broke. £130 million. We sold at the absolute peak. We replaced a brute with a genius. The shadows of deception are gone. The Viking was a blunt force instrument. The Spider is a surgical one. To platform Julian Álvarez and our creative stable, we didn't just need coaches, we needed masters of the final third. I scoured the globe for the elite. Alexander Thompson arrives as our new professor of spacing, and joining him, David Warner. And no, before the media asks, he hasn't traded the cricket bat for a tactical board. This Warner is a specialist in explosive transition. Together, they are tasked with turning our possession into a weapon of mass destruction. But while we built the front, the foundation was rotting. An internal audit revealed a cancer in the recruitment department. Leon Allen and Aaron Bates weren't just scouting players, they were scouting kickbacks, financial infidelity, compromised data. They treated the Hail End Supremacy program like a personal brokerage. In my club, you don't just lose your job for that, you lose your reputation. I terminated them with extreme prejudice. We do not compromise on the soul of the academy. To replace the traitors, I went into the shadows. I found two men who exist off the grid, Grigor Antonov and Pascal Yanev. No social media, no public profile, just a trail of unearthed gems across the Balkans and the Black Sea. They aren't just scouts, they are talent hunters. The dragnet has been reset. In a dynasty, the hardest part isn't the arrival of new stars, it's knowing when a soldier's war is over. Ben White had given everything for the badge, but Jurrien Timber had become an immovable object. And with Reece James departing Chelsea for Munich, a vacuum opened in West London. We don't usually arm our neighbours, but for £43 million, I'll provide the escort. We secured a massive fee for a player who was no longer a guaranteed starter, business at its most clinical. Then, a test of discipline. Leandro Trossard. A public confrontation with Cesc in training was a line crossed. Sentiment would have kept him. Authority demanded his exit. But I am an architect, not a gossip. I buried the reports of his behaviour, shielding the truth from the press to ensure his market value remained pristine. When PSG called, they saw a world-class finisher, not a disgruntled rebel. I shook their hands and took £39 million. The secret is safe, and the profit is legendary. Pascal Yanev didn't wait for his first paycheck to prove his worth. Before he even had a desk, he delivered Stipe Lovric, a Croatian gem hidden in the regional leagues. I signed him for a pittance and threw him into pre-season. He was a revelation. Within weeks, the phones were melting. I didn't want a project, I wanted an asset flip. I sold him to Brentford for £10.5 million, a massive profit in 60 days, with a £20 million buyback clause tucked into my pocket. The summer reached its crossroads. One spot in the attack. Two superstars. On one hand, the finished article, Rafael Leao. Faster, a master of the cross, the darling of the San Siro. On the other, the future, Kenan Yildiz. Yildiz offered supreme ball control and a superior eye for goal, but he lacked Leao's raw experience. It was a choice between now and forever. Cesc was unequivocal. He saw in Yildiz a ceiling that touched the clouds. He saw a player he could mould into the best in the world. Amorim is a pragmatist. He wanted players for his system. I wanted the outlier. I exploited Juve's need for tactical balance to extract Yildiz for £50 million. A king's ransom for a bargain for an architect. The Crown Prince of Turin is now a gunner. While the world watched Manchester United implode, I watched their greatest asset wither, Kobbie Mainoo. He was a diamond in a house on fire. I didn't negotiate with United, I offered a mercy mission. I leveraged the boys' desire to play modern winning football to force their hand. £30 million for the future of the English midfield? It's almost criminal. Mainoo is free. The loop was closed. Nwaneri, Simmons and Carter returned from their loans as men. They didn't just add depth, they added fear. The squad is now so stacked that the sovereign bench alone could challenge for the top four. Look at that list. Most clubs would kill for one of them. We have them as plan B. We don't just have talent aplenty, we have specific solutions to every problem Europe can throw at us. We secured the ink of continuity for the men who define our spine. First, the conductor, Martin Ødegaard. At the peak of his powers, he is the heartbeat of North London. We extended the maestro, ensuring the symphony continues under his baton. Then, the ramparts. Gabriel Magalhães, our Brazilian rock, and Riccardo Calafiori, the Italian artist of the tackle. We locked them down to ensure the fortress remains impenetrable. And finally, Karl Hein, the loyal deputy, a soldier who understands the mission and accepts the weight of the shirt. But a garden only flourishes if you are willing to pull the weeds. No matter how beautiful the flower, if it carries poison, it must go. Matty Manning was Hale End royalty, talent in abundance, a future written in the stars. But talent without respect is a liability. Ethan Nwaneri, a boy who has bled for this project, was leading a mandatory session. Manning decided to take a sly, cheeky dig at Ethan's lack of first-team minutes. He thought it was banter. I saw it as a breach of the sovereign standard. I didn't give him a second chance. I didn't give him a lecture. I made sure it was that disrespectful chap's last day at our facility. I instructed Delroy Thomas, no recommendations. Toxicity starts with a whisper. It ends with a sacking. Manning is gone. While the battle raged on the grass, a war was being fought in the boardrooms of Milan. I met with the high-level officials of Maison Valenti. We weren't discussing a sponsorship. We were discussing a cultural takeover. The vision was unprecedented. They wanted to produce the most expensive matchday couture in British history. They wanted our stars, men with impeccable taste, to headline global runway events. But perfection is protracted. The figures were mind-boggling, but the hurdles were immense. Image rights disputes, obligational friction with existing sponsors, a legal labyrinth that would break most negotiators. But I am not most negotiators. We are crafting a deal that will redefine the valuation of a sports brand. Silk, steel, and sovereignty. We began in the beehive of the G-Tech, a hive of activity, but the stings came from North London. 2 for the King, Saka. A debut signature from the Spider, Álvarez. And Mateta, the Hammer, striking with precision. 4-0. The champions didn't just arrive, they announced themselves. Then came the streak, a crimson tide sweeping across the land. Yildiz with a volley of pure stardust against Forest. Álvarez, weaving his web at Stamford Bridge. Saka, with a finesse so sweet it should be illegal, finding the top corner against Wolves. Mateta, a meteor falling in the box against Villa. And Bukayo again, a volley against Chelsea that defied the laws of physics. 6 games, 18 points, imperious, infallible, or so it seemed. But confidence is a fickle mistress. 1 week she's your soulmate, the next she doesn't know your name. The rhythm broke, the music stopped. Everton arrived at our fortress and stole the keys. 0-1, the first crack in the marble. And the cruelty of the 90th. Rodrigo Muniz, a dagger delivered in the dying embers, back-to-back home defeats. The invincibility was gone, replaced by a cold, biting reality. By December, the view from the summit had vanished. From 1st to 4th, 7 points adrift. The media shifted the narrative from a title defense to a top 4 marathon. The vultures were circling. Discord is the rust that destroys a dynasty. When David Ornstein speaks, the world listens. The narrative was out of my control. A civil war between the boardroom and the touchline. In my world, a house divided is a house for sale. I had to act. I reached out to Josh immediately. I didn't offer excuses. I offered a promise. A swift turnaround. But perception is reality. We had to kill the rumors of a rift before they poisoned the dressing room. I organized a team bonding day at the summit of London. High altitude, high stakes. I invited the press to see the unity, not hear about it. But once the cameras were gone, the luxury ended. The smiles vanished. It was time for the truth. I looked at the men who won the double. I looked at the new stars, and I gave them the only thing they needed, the standard. Look at this city. Look at the N5 down there. They think we're done. They think last season was a fluke. They see 7 points and they see a ceiling. I see a challenge. We are the champions. But right now, you're playing like you're afraid to lose what you've already won. We didn't build this to defend a title. We built this to take every title until there are none left. If you want to be a king, you have to kill the doubt in your own head first. The tactics don't matter if the heart isn't there. 7 points isn't a deficit. It's the distance we're going to bury them by. The rot stops today. The meeting of minds was over. The forge was hot. Now, we go back to the pitch to see if the steel holds. The revival required a sacrifice. And where better to offer it than at the altar of Anfield? Arsenal, with their backs to the Mersey, looking for a sign. The sign arrived in the form of a Turkish projectile. Saka with the delivery and Kenan Yildiz. Oi! What a header! A bullet! A statement! The nerves of the travelling faithful weren't just calmed, they were electrified. Ødegaard slips it through for the spider, and Julian Álvarez strikes with the venom of a man possessed. 2-0. And then, the coronation. The star boy, cutting in, eyes the heavens and finds the top corner with a strike of pure aesthetic gold. Gakpo offered a mere footnote, but the book was already written. 3-1. The bid was back. The Gunners were breathing again. Amidst the domestic climb, the continental obsession loomed. To the Bernabéu we went, carrying the scars of last season's heartbreak. We didn't come for a draw. We came to end the harassment. Cometh the hour, cometh the magician. Eberechi Eze strikes, and look at that. The cheek, the Bellingham celebration in the Lion's Den, defiance in the white heat of Madrid. But the masterpiece was yet to be painted. Lewis Skelly, the inverted boy wonder, whips a cross of such exquisite geometry, and Julian Álvarez meets it with a touch of the divine. Oh my days! If there was ever a goal worthy of winning a game of football in this cathedral, it was this work of art. Jude himself would curl one back for the hosts, but the message had already been sent. Real Madrid conquered. Then the Blaugrana, a clash of philosophies at the Emirates. In a tight, suffocating encounter, the Catalan Jewel Pedri found the crack in the wall at the stroke of halftime. But elite problems require elite solutions. Saka and Álvarez engage in a telepathic exchange. Julian plays him through, and Bukayo's finish is as smart as the movement. The pendulum swung again. Lamine Yamal, the boy wonder of the Mediterranean, restored their lead. We were staring at the abyss until Araujo handled. Immense pressure. But Bukayo Saka doesn't do nerves. He does ice. He laces the penalty home. A point salvaged. A giant tested. In the final act of the league phase, with the heavy hitters rested, the squad players took the stage. Mateta, clinical from a Madueke cutback. Eberechi, the provider for Yildiz. 2-0 before the interval. Then it became Hail End time, supervised by the Mancunian gem, Kobbie Mainoo. He didn't just run the show, he owned it. He picks his spot and strikes a worldie past the helpless keeper. Absolute authority. The floodgates didn't just open, they collapsed. Teenage Mackenzie following suit with a beauty of his own. And the final exclamation point, Mainoo to Nwaneri. 6. A proper drubbing. 7 wins and a draw. Unbeaten. Imperious. January brought a different kind of frost. Eberechi Eze, a superstar confined to the bench because the captain was playing at a level that defied physics. Eberechi wanted out. The lure of starting elsewhere was pulling at his jersey. I couldn't lose him. Not now. We were approaching the business end of the season, and gambling on a replacement who might not settle was a risk I wouldn't take. A pact was forged. The terms were simple. Total commitment for the run-in. In exchange, I gave him my word. You can leave in the summer with our blessing. He stayed. The title charge marched into the cockpit of North London. A trip to the gaff of little old Spurs. For 13 minutes, it was business as usual. Ødegaard striking the first note to put us ahead. 3 minutes later, destiny sneaks through the back door. 1-1. The dance had only just begun. Kenan Yildiz dances through the white shirts, lays it on a plate for the Argentine magician, and Álvarez restores the lead. But response follows response. Kulusevski to tell 2-2. Álvarez again, striking before the interval to seize the lead. And then Jean-Philippe Mateta. He stuns the believers and the blasphemers alike with a glorious strike from the edge of the area. Surely, the points were packed for the journey home, but as I've learned in this game, control and chaos are sworn enemies. Richarlison breaks free, top bins. Suddenly, the final 6 minutes felt like 60, a total swing of momentum. Richarlison, playing like a man possessed, busts through the barricades like a madman. Cold, clinical, cruel, 4-4, a derby classic for the ages, but a dent in our armour that left a mark. The quest for the Triple Crown met a familiar shadow, Liverpool. In the 5th round of the FA Cup, we fought a war of attrition, only for Florian Wirtz to emerge as the executioner. The domestic cup journey was over. February's frost brought more than cold. It brought the crack of an ACL. Karl Hein, our reliable deputy, ruled out for the rest of the season. We were forced to look within, to trust the supremacy programme entirely. From the depths of Hale End, we found the solution. Callum Brown, a humble kid with Sierra Leonean roots and a work ethic that put veterans to shame. But it wasn't just his heart that stood out. Standing proudly at an astonishing 6'9", the tallest goalkeeper in the British Isles. A product of the Freetown corridor, stepping into the white light of the first team. The path to Wembley was paved with goals, but it was blocked by the ghosts of the Mersey. We levelled the tie in the dying light of regular time, dragging the contest into the cold, calculated lottery of 12 yards. Saka, cool. The rest, flawless. But then, the skyscraper of North London cast his shadow. He guesses right, dives low, and he denies Ekitike. The giant of Hale End delivers his first miracle. Arsenal are going to the final. A gesture of pure silk from Cesc Fàbregas. The armband for Eberechi Eze, a farewell captaincy for the magician. But Nottingham Forest hadn't read the script. Igor Jesus taps home at the stroke of half-time. The underdogs were howling. The response was orchestrated by the captain on the day with a dink of pure delicacy. 1-1. But Forest struck again. With 4 minutes left, the trophy was slipping until Martinelli found Effiong. The youngster nestles it home. And Jean-Philippe Mateta. What a volley! The Frenchman finds the net and the Gunners find the lead. Parfait, absolute parfait. And to seal the ceremony? Calafiori. From the heavens. A strike of such geometry it belongs in a museum. Top corner. 3-2 becomes 4-2. Silverware secured. A crowning moment for Eberechi. Delightful scenes in the Wembley sun. In Europe, we were a scythe. Monaco pillaged, 6-1 on aggregate. A principality reduced to ruins. Galatasaray offered a Turkish cauldron of fire, but we cooled the flames in London to book our ticket to the Final Four. Now, the Temple of Catalonia beckoned. But before Spain, a domestic reckoning. Liverpool at the N5. A title push that required a statement. Enter the Spider. Julian Álvarez. 1, 2, and 3. A first-half hat-trick of such predatory perfection it settled the tie before the tea was poured. To the Camp Nou, the cathedral of football. But we arrived without our talisman. No Saka, no Álvarez, just a wall of red and white, and a man named David Raya. Raya had to bail us out of jail. 1, 2, 3 saves in 10 minutes. But the pressure was a tidal wave. Lewandowski from the spot. 1-0. We were dominated, suffocated. Raya denies Désiré Doué. Then another penalty, and Raya saves again. He was a colossus, a one-man barricade against a Catalan storm. Mateta almost pulls off a beauty. Before Gavi gallops into the void, 2-0. We were sinking until Timber flighted across, and Mateta thumped a bullet header past Garcia. Deserved? No. Vital? Absolutely. Chaos reigned. Saliba sees red. Ferran Torres compounding the misery. 3-1. We were staring at an exit. But then, Noni Madueke, a slaloming, shimmering run through the heart of the Barca midfield, and he whips it into the top corner. Oh my days. A disaster of a performance, but we leave the Temple only 1 goal down. The second leg loomed like a mountain. Cesc gambled, resting the heavy artillery against Brighton. Gruder struck for the Seagulls, and for a moment, the gamble looked thin. Ethan Nwaneri, the architect of tomorrow, finds Merle, level. Then Nwaneri again, threading the needle for Effiong, who lays it on a plate for Kobbie Mainoo. The kids have the keys. 3 points secured, the stars rested, and most importantly, the Spider and the King are back for the return. The stage was set for a night of fire, but it began with an icy draft. Désiré Doué, as early as the 4th minute, silences the Emirates. But these gunners, they don't do despair. Look at Gabriel. He overlaps, he turns playmaker, and Julian Álvarez. Oh, what a finish. The spider bites back. We were level on the night, but the drama was only just warming its hands by the fire. Álvarez strikes again. The tie is leveled. The momentum is a tidal wave. But Barcelona are the masters of the counterpunch. Lamine Yamal, the boy who would be king, slices through our heart, finds Fermin, and the Catalans lead again. The clock is a cruel master now. Luis Skelly from the heavens. Garcia saves. Miles then finds Álvarez, who unselfishly squares it to Declan Rice. 3-2 on the night, 5-5 on aggregate, total unadulterated madness. Extra time. Rafinha strikes for the visitors, advantage Barca. And then, the Starboy awakens. Saka releases the throttle, pulls it back, and Jean-Philippe Mateta thumps it home. Pure cinema for the neutral, absolute torture for the faithful. In the dying embers, Bukayo Saka takes the universe into his hands. He robs Olmo, he burns past O'Reilly with the arrogance of a god. He cuts inside, and ecstasy, utter, unbridled ecstasy. With the last kick of the game, Bukayo Saka books the ticket to the final, the boy from Ealing, the king of N5. From the fire of Europe to the furnace of the Premier League, 9th of May, Red versus Sky Blue, a title decider for the ages. Cesc's mandate was simple. If you cannot win, just do not lose. But the Mancunian's Viking drew first blood. Ooh, Haaland. The inevitable Haaland again. 0-2. The title was slipping into the Manchester rain. Cesc Fàbregas, he doesn't do caution. He threw it to the wind. 2 strikers, Rice and Ødegaard, alone in the engine room. They'd rather die on their feet than live on their knees. It paid off. Saka curls a beauty, top corner, a lifeline. Then Mateta holds them off. Saka finds Álvarez. Power, precision, unbelievable. The scent of blood. Yildiz delivers a pinpoint cross, and Julian Álvarez, the turnaround, 3-2. The Emirates is a frenzy, but the ghost of Zubimendi haunts the gap. Reinders unmarked, Raya parries, Nipan pounces, 3-3. A topsy-turvy epic. Fate remains in our own hands. No time for a hangover. Bournemouth arrived at the N5, but we were not in the mood for pleasantries. Ødegaard to Álvarez, 1-0. Saka to Álvarez, 2-0. Rice tees up the captain, and Ødegaard, oh, that is cheeky. A dink of pure silk, 3-0. In the second half, Álvarez completes his hat-trick, a march toward immortality. It all comes down to the final day. Again, one match, one trophy, one legacy. And so, the calendar narrows. We arrived at the 4th week of May, 2028. A week destined to be etched in granite or dissolved in tears. The biggest 7 days in the 142-year history of the Arsenal. 2 games, 2 crowns, 0 margin for error. First, a pilgrimage to the Theatre of Dreams, to face Manchester United, the country's most decorated league dynasty, needing a win to retain our own. And then, a rare, intoxicating pursuit of the Holy Grail against English football's European aristocracy, Liverpool. The stakes, they transcend sport, they touch the soul. Win both, and we are immortal. Statues are cast, songs are written. But lose, the narrative of the bottlers waiting to consume us whole. This was not a moment for isolation. It was a moment for the phalanx. I reached out to Josh Kroenke and the board. My message was not a request. It was a summons. I told them, do not watch from the safety of Colorado. Come to the trenches, be at Old Trafford, be at the Olympico. Look the players in the eye. Show them that the machine is behind them. They agreed. The hierarchy was united. The stage was set. Old Trafford, the Theatre of Dreams, waiting to become the stage for our coronation or the venue for our funeral. The Mancunian stood between us and history, a red wall of defiance. The only lightning in the first half came from the boot of Bruno Fernandes, a curled invitation to disaster, repelled by the palms of David Raya. News filtered through from the capital. The cottagers were ahead against City. A respite? We dared not bank on it. Disaster. Cesc threading the needle, Mbeumo racing into the void and firing low past Raya. 1-0. The Stretford end erupted, not in joy for themselves, but in spite for us. But champions do not panic. They play. Declan Rice slips a pass through the eye of the storm, and Julian Álvarez, with aplomb, the spider bites back. 1-1, but a draw was not enough. Cesc played his trump card. A gutsy call. Martin Zubimendi withdrawn. Kobbie Mainoo introduced, walking into the cauldron of his boyhood club, greeted not by love, but by a wall of noise. Cesc trusted him to withstand the hate. He did more than withstand it. He weaponized it. The script could not have been written by the gods themselves. Added time. The lad from Stockport. He bulldozes his way into the box. He ignores the ghosts of his past. He strikes. Kobbie Mainoo. The prodigal son returns, not to embrace, but to destroy. You could feel the oxygen leave the stadium, the anguish of the Old Trafford faithful, the agony of conceding a title clincher on their own patch, compounded by the excruciating pain of the dagger being wielded by one of their own. Poetic justice? No, this was poetic violence. We could not care less. We rejoiced in the presence of our enemies. Our cup didn't just run over, it flooded Manchester. For the first time in our history, we have retained the Premier League title. Back to back, glorious, imperious, sovereign. The champagne of Manchester was barely dry before the wine of Rome beckoned. We paused our celebrations to eye the prize we craved the most, the Holy Grail. Liverpool awaited, the aristocrats of this competition, dripping in pedigree, comfortable in the rarefied air of a European final. We had to be perfect. The first half was a breathless stalemate. Two heavyweights circling, feinting, refusing to blink. Compact, disciplined. The air was thick with tension. Close to the hour mark, Cesc Fàbregas played his hand. Kenan Yildiz withdrawn. Eberechi Eze introduced, unleashing the Englishman's maverick creativity on the left flank. 7 minutes later, ignition. Declan Rice lays it on a velvet cushion. And Bukayo Saka! Oh, he has ripped the roof off the Olympico, firing it into the top corner with the force of destiny. Every gunner in Rome, in London, in the world, into an absolute frenzy. The star boy was supernova. Moments later, a slaloming run of impossible balance. He was painting a masterpiece on the biggest canvas of all. Dancing through the raindrops, denied only by the cruel geometry of the post and crossbar. 3 minutes later, Timber's pinpoint delivery met by the captain, Martin Ødegaard, a stunning volley. 2-0. The dream was no longer a vapor. It was becoming solid gold reality. As the Reds threw the kitchen sink, the spaces opened up. Eberechi Eze, drifting like smoke, finds Lewis Skelly in the area. A delightful backheel. Into the path of the spider. Julian Álvarez. He applies the wax seal. 3-0. Game, set, and match. Where Bertie Mee, George Graham, Arsene Wenger and Mikel Arteta all came up short, Cesc Fàbregas has delivered. A proud institution for over 140 years can finally sit amongst European royalty without feeling out of place. We have disarmed our rivals of their most dangerous weapon. The banter is dead. The history books have been rewritten. Arsenal Football Club are the kings of Europe. Fully and unequivocally deserved. If the team was the machine, Julian Álvarez was the fusion reactor. A revelation? No, a revolution. In his debut campaign, the Spider spun a web that ensnared the entirety of Europe. 43 goals, 17 assists, 60 goal contributions. He didn't just fill the shoes of the Viking, he walked on water in them. And alongside him, the constant, the totem, our very own starboy ascending to the celestial. Bukayo Saka stepped up with over 40 goal involvements, a statistical monument to his genius. He is no longer just the face of the club, he is the soul of the sport. Then, The Prince, Kenan Yildiz, instrumental and incisive, touching the 30-goal involvement mark. Turin's loss was emphatically London's gain. And let us not forget the gladiator, Jean-Philippe Mateta. 24 goals and 6 assists, the most productive season of his career. If the football was a fairy tale, the finances were a feat of industrial dominance. We didn't just break the bank, we became the bank. For the first time in the history of this great institution, the revenue stream breached the stratosphere. £1.076 billion, a 10-figure testament to our power. The great squeeze on Real Madrid contributed to over 220 million in player sales. Prize money from the treble, merchandise flying off the shelves, and the relentless machinery of Cortex Analytics and Vanguard, it all poured into the river. We spent lavishly on the squad, 152 million, yet the books remained immaculate, a net profit of £566 million. We are operating with the efficiency of a machine and the soul of a champion. And the debt, that once insurmountable mountain, we continue to chip it away with the force of a glacier. 75 million wired to KSE, another 75 million to clear transfer markers, £150 million of liability erased. The market has responded with awe. The club valuation now stands at £3.98 billion. We are knocking on the door of the 4 billion mark. We asked for the Holy Grail. We demanded the one trophy that had eluded our grasp for a century and a half. And finally, under the lights of Rome, we drank from the cup. The Champions League is home. To win once is a moment. To retain is a dynasty. We stood our ground against the Manchester machine and kept the crown in North London. We sought elevation and we found the stratosphere. The arrivals of Álvarez, Yildiz and Mainoo brought stardust. The squad isn't just deeper, it is richer in soul. Florentino Perez came for our Viking, expecting a discount. Instead, we extracted the biggest transfer fee in the history of this institution. But perfection remains a ghost we chase. We aim to shatter the Premier League goal-scoring record. 106 was the summit. We scored 104, 2 goals shy. But as one chapter closes, the ink spills onto the next. Eberechi. A pact was made in the winter frost. He kept his word. Now I must keep mine. A European powerhouse is in advanced negotiations. The paperwork is drawn, waiting only for the new financial year to be sanctioned. The magician is leaving the stage. And then, the final piece of the puzzle, the Maison Valenti partnership. The Italians were in the final stages of drafting their proposal, methodical, artistic, crafting a deal to make us the most fashionable club on earth. They were taking their time to ensure perfection, but in business, time is a vulnerability. While Rome sculpted, Doha struck. Maison Valenti's fiercest competitors in the luxury sector reached out directly. No agents, no middlemen. They knew Valenti was drafting. They wanted to hijack the narrative before the Italians could even print the contract. They offered a meeting in the desert. The proposal, 50% more capital, instant liquidity. Valenti offers legacy, Qatar offers empire. The Italians are still writing their offer, but the plane to Doha is already fueled. The commercial war has just begun.